I always thought if you had a lot of money, you're going to have a great retirement. And I thought if you had more money, you would have a better retirement. But I learned there's so much more to it than that. There's all these non-financial challenges that you're going to be facing that have to be dealt with. I wasn't prepared for any of it because I never thought about it.
Welcome to Second Act Stories. Every 2 weeks, we introduce you to a new person pursuing a more rewarding life in a second act. I'm your host, Andy Levine.
And I'm Andy's co-host, Scott Merritt. So, Andy, you're ever the world traveler, always in some far-flung location. And the interview you did today is no different because it brought you to a different country. You went to Toronto, Canada, where you sat down with Mike Drak. Tell us about Mike.
So Mike worked as a banker for all of his professional career, and he was laid off at the age of 59. He received a sizable severance, and he was initially very happy about this and happy to be retired. But he quickly faced what he terms retirement shock, and that's a term that he coined to describe how tremendously unhappy he was in the year that followed. He decided he needed to educate others about these challenges and the challenges of retirement. He ended up writing 3 different books that we're going to hear about in the podcast based on his experience and his research.
Now, his experience is even further emphasized by the fact that 2 years ago, at the age of 68, he actually competed in his first Ironman competition.
I have tremendous respect for anyone who enters an Ironman. An Ironman Triathlon is 2.4 miles swimming, a 112-mile bike ride, and then running a full marathon 26.2 miles. It usually takes something like 17 to 18 hours to complete it. But let's start off talking about the day he got laid off as a banker.
One day I got a call from my boss. And he said, "Do you mind coming over to my office? I want to review the profit plan with you." I said, "Sure." So I, got in my car and I drove over to his office and I walked in. And he goes, "You know what? Instead of doing it here, why don't we go upstairs to the boardroom?" And I thought that was kind of weird because he had a big office. And sure enough, I walked in the boardroom. There's a young lady sitting there, young enough to be my daughter. And she motioned for me to sit down across from her, and the process started. And I was sitting there, and I was just smiling inside because here I was going to quit anyways, and they were giving me a package. And I went back to the car, got in, phoned my wife, and I said, "Contessa, we hit the lottery."
You weren't too upset about this.
Oh, it was wonderful because I was going to leave with nothing.
Right. And this way you got some sort of severance.
Oh, yeah. And, I was so happy. I thought, that's it. I could retire. Life was going to be wonderful.
And had you thought much about retirement previous to that conversation?
No, I never intended to retire. I was going to go work somewhere else. But, because the severance and whatnot, I was retired. And I was at home. My wife was still working. All my friends were still working. And one day, I remember it was a Monday morning. I was sitting there on the couch all by myself. And I was trying to find something to watch on TV. So I had one of these big screen TVs, and I got like 500 stations. And do you think I could find anything to watch?
Nothing on 500 channels.
Nothing. And I just sat there. I was miserable. I was lonely. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was frustrated. And all the things I used to love to do, I didn't feel like doing. I didn't feel like going out for a ride on my bike or going fishing or doing something like that. I just wanted to sit by myself and moan.
You refer to this as retirement shock.
People call it different things. But yeah, it was a shock to my system. And the thing that concerned me was my father suffered from it for a year. And I had a good friend die from it. He ended up drinking himself to death. I'm a banker. I helped hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people save for retirement. And I always thought it was a money thing. I always thought if you had a lot of money, you're going to have a great retirement. And I thought if you had more money, you would have a better retirement. But I learned there's so much more to it than that. There's all these non-financial challenges that you're going to be facing that have to be dealt with. I wasn't prepared for any of it because I never thought about it. So there was no answers there, and I had to figure it out for myself, and it took a while.
So help us understand, what did you figure out about yourself that obviously can apply to a lot of other people too, but what was the feeling of loss?
Well, the first thing I figured out was it had something to do with not working anymore. That I knew right off the top. And then I thought about it deeply. And I thought, you know what? Okay, there were some things about the job near the end I didn't like, but there were a lot of things that were important to me that I did like. But I never thought about them before. And one of the key drivers I have is helping people. I love helping people, especially people in need that need advice or direction or help them problem solve. I really enjoy doing that.
And that was taken away from you.
It was taken away from me. Another thing I found out I missed was the structure and routine. You go to work, there's structure there, and there's routine afterwards when you come home from work. And I think the biggest one was not having a good reason to get out of bed in the morning, not having purpose. Before, my purpose was go to work, do a good job, get paid, and then use the money to support my family. Mm-hmm. That was my big purpose. That got me out of bed 36 years, right? And when that was taken away, that purpose, well, what do you do?
How long did you suffer from this?
I would say close to a year.
Okay.
Until I figured it all out.
So what was your new purpose that you found?
My new purpose was helping people avoid going through what I went through and experiencing what I did, because I thought it was very dangerous.
It sounds like you found your calling in helping others transition to a successful retirement.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's where the idea of writing a book came from. I said, okay, I got to help these people. I got to warn them. I need to write a book. And the good thing is I had a lot of passion for it because of what I went through. And because I like helping people, it motivated me to work hard. And I'll tell you how many times I want to quit writing that book. You have no idea.
So the first book is Victory
Lap Retirement.
It came out in 2017.
Yes.
How did you go about doing this? Did you just sit down at your laptop one day and start typing away, or how did this happen?
Because of the passion I had, I would wake up 4:30 every morning, and I would go to my home office and I would start writing. And that would carry me through for 3-4 hours, just by myself, isolated, writing out my thoughts before my first cup of coffee. Now, I learned that when you write like that, you don't use the conscious brain. You're writing from your gut, your soul, and that's what comes up. And I did that until it was finished. And I remember I sent it to my editor. And she had it for about a week, and then she called me back and she goes, she was really excited. And she says, "Do you know what you've done?" I said, "Yeah, I wrote a retirement book." She goes, "No, you wrote a book about not retiring."
I know on Amazon you've gotten some great reviews on all of your books.
Thank you.
What has the feedback been from people, that your readers?
It's been very good. I love when I get an direct email from them, and they tell me how it helps them. But they say it's very clear, and it gives them another option that they don't have to retire, and it gives them a lot to think about and consider, and it changes their viewpoint, their approach to retirement.
Your second book, Retirement, Heaven or Hell, what was the... You just finished doing a first book.
That's right.
What drove you to do the second one at this point?
This is where I first started to focus on retirement lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to come up with principles to live by in retirement. And I wanted principles that would increase the odds of me living longer and healthier and happier than average. That was the goal to that. I started to focus on longevity and happiness and things like that.
Just to finish the trilogy of your books, the last book, or the most recent book, I don't know if it's the last book. You say it is, but I don't know. Longevity, Lifestyle by Design. You're giving this book away, which is quite extraordinary.
Yes.
Just talk about that.
I'm changing as I write these books. And for the longest time, I chased after money. And it was hard to stop that because I was brought up to, keep chasing money, try to make money and all those things. And I said, okay, here's a good opportunity to give back and help a lot of people. So I spent over a year writing the book with some of my friends. So I put down my thoughts about retirement shock, how can it be avoided. I went into a great deal about retirement lifestyle design with the focus on longevity. Like, I don't even like the word retirement. I like the word longevity. Mm-hmm. How can we live the longest, best life possible? That's my goal. And that's how I tried to design a lifestyle around. And I said, this is really good. This will help a lot of people. And I set a goal of helping 1 million people. And I said, okay, one of the ways I can do it is give the book away for free. You can buy it on Amazon, but why buy it when you can download it for free?
You've mentioned a couple of times finances, and I'm reading that from you that having a financial foundation is important.
Yes.
To make this work. It's hard to make this work without that. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, because if you don't have a certain degree of financial freedom, you're going to be forced to work, period. And then the question is, okay, if you have to work, are you doing work that you enjoy? Or are you just doing it for the money? And if you're just doing it for the money, you're not going to be happy. And so that's important. So when I tell people, I say, find good part-time work. It's work that you enjoy doing. And then you get the benefits attached to it. Like all of a sudden you get your work friends back. You get better health because you get out of the house off the couch. Instead of doing puzzles like some people to stay sharp, you're actually working on a computer and learning new things because you're forced to with all the changes. So there's all these benefits that are attached to it that come along with the work. So
you've referenced a healthy lifestyle a couple of times. You took this to the far extreme at the age of 68, entering the Ironman Triathlon in Cozumel, Mexico. Yes. I want to hear all about this.
I was in sports and played lacrosse and things like that. Loved riding my bike. Loved running a little bit. I don't like swimming.
Okay.
I really don't, but I had to learn. It was terrible. I remember when I went the first time in the pool, the lifeguard saw me, and he goes, "Sir, do me a favor. Will you swim close to my chair here so I don't have to go far?"
I don't want to have to swim across the pool to save you.
It was terrible, but I got this thing in my head that I needed to do it. And the reason I wanted to do it was that I was in bad shape. And it was made worse when I was writing books, because when you write a book, you just sit in a chair in front of a computer. And when I get stressed from writing, I graze. So there's food around me there, and you keep eating and writing, and and I put on like 48 pounds.
As we said at the top of the podcast, an Ironman Triathlon is a massive undertaking. A 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26-mile run. The race was in Cozumel, Mexico, and trouble was brewing even before the race started. Mike was nervous and didn't sleep the night before. It was incredibly hot, especially for someone from Canada, and rain squalls delayed the start of the race and made the water rough that morning.
Eventually, we got the green light to go. And so what we would do is like 4 of us would go to the end of this floating dock, and you would jump in, start swimming, and then another 4 would jump in. So what happened is that I'm in the water for like 10 seconds, and someone kicked me in my right goggle.
Oh.
And then the water got in. I couldn't see out of my right eye. And seawater is very salty, and it burned both my eyes. But I kept going and going, and I think I was swimming in circles sometimes. And then I noticed near the end of the swim, the water temperature dropped, and it got cooler. I went, that's kind of weird. And then all of a sudden, I got these stings, boom, boom, around my shoulders, around my head. It was a jellyfish.
Oh, God.
And so, but thank God it was near the end, and I was able to get out of the water, and I looked like Rocky after his first fight with Apollo Creed, all the puffy face and everything. But I got on the bike and I started riding. I couldn't even lift my head because of the jellyfish things, but I kept pushing. And near the end of the bike, they told us we couldn't go anymore to the back of the Packers because they didn't make arrangements to give an extension for the road closures with the Mexican government. And so they said, sorry, you can't go. It was kind of disappointing going for all the training and expense going down there and not knowing. And I swore I'd never go back, but now I'm starting to lean the other way because I don't want to have any regrets, right? I don't want to keep thinking, maybe I could have done it. So in 2 years, I plan on going back for the return.
So we'll see you in Cozumel in 2 years, you think?
I'm going to try.
Okay. So I sort of asked you this once before, but I'll go at it a different way. For someone who's thinking about retirement, maybe they're in a corporate job and they're in their late 50s, 60s, and they're thinking about stopping working, what would you encourage them to do?
Well, the first question I would have for them is come up with a good reason for why do you want to stop working? And it would be interesting to hear what that reason is. And the next question is, okay, so what are you going to retire to? Have you thought it through? From my experience, 99% of people haven't. They don't have a plan for what they're going to do. They feel that, sure, I might have enough money. I'm just going to sit back and relax and figure it out as it goes. And that never works out well. You need to have a plan because you need to do something else. You need something that will give you new purpose and that will feed your needs. And if you don't have that, you're going to be in trouble.
So it's taken you about a decade since leaving the bank, but it sounds like you're pretty happy with your lifestyle and what you do right now.
I am, but it took a long time to get here because I had no guidance. I had nothing. I had to figure it out for myself. And again, that's why I do what I do, is to really cut that learning curve short for people, reduce the stress and say, here are the things you need to focus on and think through to come up with this ideal retirement lifestyle and enjoy the rest of your years.
So there's Mike's story. Andy, thanks for finding Mike. Really interesting. I can't really put my finger on what was so compelling, but like the whole conversation was so different and really got me thinking a lot. Anyway, it's kind of crazy that a banker, somebody who advised hundreds of people on their retirements, wound up not really being ready for his own retirement.
And Mike would be the first one to admit that.
Right. So I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to limit it, right? Let's talk about retirement shock. Now, I haven't heard that term before. Is that a real thing?
Mike created the term, but I think it's a very real thing. Some of the research he showed me suggests that almost 1/3 of retirees experience some form of retirement shock. And I think if you think back to your own, sometimes people say, I failed retirement. That's sort of what they're talking about. People who were unready emotionally for retirement and weren't able to handle this huge change in their life.
That's a good segue to my next question, because a lot of the people that we've profiled talk about finding their purpose, right? And it sounds like that's what Mike did, but he did it in a different way. Talk about how he applied his purpose to his retirement.
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience of being retired early and then being completely unprepared for it, he really wants to try to help others avoid that situation. And he got through this. He figured it out. He figured it out on his own without any help. And he said, I know there's got to be a lot of other people who are going to be going through this in the future. I want to try to warn them and to allow them to get ahead of this and gain a better understanding of what they have to do to retire successfully. And so that's what he's done.
So really what he's talking about is like holistic retirement planning. And they say that retirement is not an age; it's a number, right? It's a number in the bank. But Mike really shines a whole new light on the concept of retirement planning.
Yeah, he is rather negative on most financial planners who completely avoid the emotional side of things. It's all about your investments and how much you need to save and what it takes to be ready financially. Mike said equally important, and perhaps even more important, is sort of the emotional side of this. What are you going to do after you're not going to work 40 hours a week? How are you going to replace that time, and how are you going to use your time, and how are you going to avoid sitting in front of a TV for 8 hours a day and being a lump on the couch? I think his books are excellent, and I think they really help people get over that.
Well, such a fascinating topic and a really, really great episode. Thanks, Andy, for finding Mike. Why don't we wrap this one up?
Sure. I think just in terms of Mike, we do want to let you know about his 3 books. The first 2, Victory Lap Retirement and Retirement Heaven or Hell, you can get on Amazon. You can also get his 3rd book, Longevity Lifestyle by Design, on Amazon. But he also allows you to download it for free by going to www.longevityLifestylebydesign.com.
If you like what you're hearing on Second Act Stories, we hope you'll share it with friends and family who might be considering a second act or planning their retirement. Like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple, or YouTube.
We hope you'll keep listening. There are more Second Act Stories just around the corner.